CW Productions presents Doctor Who Short Trips, Zygons and Martians, What Next? Written by Simon Koszalka. Performed by Alan Stewart.
Oh, come on. Just a couple more clicks. Gah. Emergency power reserve active. Performing an emergency slingshot now. God, you know one day I won't even be able to land anywhere if I keep getting myself into trouble. What are you looking at? I know. I'm not one to talk when it comes to getting myself into trouble. Ha, it's basically my middle name. Tisk. Great. One more repair to add to the list. Now, you might be wondering, how did your favorite Time Lord Renegade end up like this? Well, it all started in a casino. I was going around doing my, business, when I noticed an ice warrior. The worst part was that the ice warrior was one of their officials. An ice warrior official! In my casino. So, I, being my oh-so-ever-glorious self, decided to go and middle around with that ice warrior. I walked up to his poker table and decided to play. After a couple of rounds had gone by and I amassed most of his credits, he finally caught on to what I was doing. He stood up in a huff and spoke with an angry growl. "You cheated me out of my credits!" I, of course, laughed and responded in the most over-the-top way. Me? Never. I would never dare to even try and cheat in my own casino. As you can see, I won fair and square. Liar. The Ice Warrior exclaimed with an enraged hiss in his voice. I demand my credits back. At that point, I really didn't care, as I was much too preoccupied with downloading the credits to my own bank account, located somewhere in the dark corners of the universe. I'm sorry, sir, but the rules of the Emerald Casino quite clearly state that if any money is lost to another opponent in the game, it can no longer be refunded nor given back. You backstabbing weak-boned cheat, the Ice Warrior spat out in a fit of rage. You will regret this. With those words, the Martian walked out in a huff, more angry than a volcano about to erupt. In the meantime, returned to my office. I spent some time in the office, pondering a, glass of exotic earth wine I had collected on one of my visits there. I was already down the third bottle when, suddenly, a torpedo hits the window of my office, causing it to explode. As I was slowly getting up and slowly regaining my, at the time, blurred vision, I saw 3 large figures standing in front of me. The Ice Warrior, from whom I had cheated out the money, and 2 of his goons standing beside him. "That's the one," the Ice Warrior hissed as they pointed at me. "I'm sorry, was there something you did not like about the service at the casino?" I asked, trying to buy for time. "You owe the general money," said one of the Ice Warrior thugs in a deep, raspy voice. "Now, gentlemen," I stuttered, trying to think of something. "Now I'm sure we can come to some amicable arrangement. I'm sure. Maybe I have something in my files." I quickly got up and ran to my file cabinet, taking out a key. And by now, I hope you know what sort of key. And if you don't, well, then you just prove how imbecilic the human race is. I placed the key into one of the keyholes, and as I did so, I quickly took out the Staser from my pocket and shot the 2 Ice Warrior thugs. Of course I'd shoot the thugs and not the general. I don't want a war to break out. As their saily cadavers fell, and before the general was able to do anything, I quickly entered the file cabinet. And lo and behold, it was my TARDIS. I turned on the scanner to see what was going on outside, only to see that I had forgotten to close the door. The Ice Warrior General ran in like a raging machine ready to kill. I, in an act of desperation, courage, engaged the TARDIS engines, but before I could set a course, the idiot shot me out. The TARDIS was spinning. The time winds were throwing us about like a car going on a bumpy road. The general took hold of the console, and the TARDIS flipped upside down. He slowly climbed his way towards me. As he was doing that, I, in full honesty, was panicking. On one side, the TARDIS might hit and crush through the timelines, causing untold damages onto it, and myself, and on the other death by a Martian. I had to think quickly. The TARDIS was upside down, and my time was growing shorter and shorter. Then it finally hit me. I started climbing towards one of the panels. I latched onto one of the levers and pushed it with all my strength. The TARDIS shook as it placed itself back into place. I let out a brief sigh of relief, with the knowledge that one problem was over. On the other hand, I had the general left to deal with. The Ice Warrior, now being able to stand, ran towards me, his claws aimed at my neck. Oh, but I wasn't going to let him kill me that easily. Oh no. In a quick flash of action, I pushed another lever, causing the TARDIS to tilt very strongly. The general was thrown to the side, but was quick enough to latch onto the console. As the general was holding on for dear life, I applied safety straps on both my hands and listened as the Ice Warrior made his empty threats. "You will die for this!" he yelled, grunting, still trying to hold onto the console. "Oh, I don't think so. Many have failed, and you're about to join the list." I responded as I pushed buttons and pulled levers. "Oh dear. I'm sorry, my dear General, but it seems I accidentally opened the door." With these words, the sound of the space-time vortex rampaged through the console room, filling it with its ambience. The General, now barely holding onto the console, spat his empty threats. "You won't kill me. You will be hunted down by my people, and you will be executed in the most violent way." "I'm sorry, General. I can't really hear you. I'm currently busy." And suddenly I quickly cut off as the TARDIS flipped to the side. I, of course, was perfectly safe. After all, I had the safety straps on. But the Ice Warrior, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. "I see that you're still holding on, General, but I suggest you let go, because you can't hold on forever." I yelled gleefully, and with a little taunt in my voice. The General growled as he began to climb the console. At that point, I was annoyed with the General's inability to die. So, in the most cliché way possible, I took out my Staser and I shot at his claws, causing him to let go, fall out screaming out the TARDIS door. For a moment, I listened to his screams as the time winds tore him apart. But I'm not a sadist, so I quickly closed the door and steered the TARDIS back into, I don't know, standard position or something like that. Now, before I started spiraling out of control and landed on this presumably backwater planet, I had another more unfortunate accident. After gaining some semblance of control, I drifted out of the vortex, very pleased with myself that I had outsmarted another cretinous alien, in a most ingenious way. Soon, I grew bored of drifting in space, so in my oh-so-altruistic fashion, I began looking for distress signals. And lo and behold, there were about 600. Now, of course, I wasn't going to answer all 600 calls after all. I'm a very busy man. So I narrowed it down to a whopping 1. Yes, I know 1 is nothing special, but to me, this one was. This call came from a Zygon ship, and I saw an opportunity to help. I walked around the console, pressing buttons, pushing levers, and pinpointing the exact coordinates of the Zygon ship. It took some time for the TARDIS to land, and I was less than agreeably calm about it, but we did get there in the end. I, of course, decided to get the lie of the land without checking the scanner. A terrible mistake that I don't make that often. Once I had opened the door, I was met with a lightning blast to the head. Of course, I was fine. I was blasted in the head so many times I've developed an immunity to it. Well, except for that one time in a rather unstable situation, but I digress. Once I regained a sense of vision, and it wasn't blurry anymore, I was met with the most grotesque creature in the universe. A Zygon. Well, there were 5 Zygons, but you get the gist. "Good morrow, creatures in need. Who are you?" one of the Zygons said through gritted fangs. "Why, to help you, of course. To be your salvation," I responded in the most over-the-top manner. "Scans indicate he is a Time Lord," said one of the Zygons. "What shall we do with him, Commander?" The Zygon, who was thanks to the pointing out of another Zygon, who was the one in command, looked at me with a look I couldn't quite decipher. "Take him to the command deck," the Zygon commander ordered. The command deck was boring, green and red with a decaying hue filling the room. The Zygons walked around, placing their hands on the controls. I was sat down on the floor near what I assumed to be the main console. Being forced to wait 30 minutes, I decided to drift off for a time. I was woken up with another lightning zap. This time I felt it, but I tried not to show it. "You know, you could have just woken me up by saying something. I'm a very light sleeper, so I'm very easy to wake up," I said with a hint of annoyment and slight pain. "Did you really come to help us?" the Zygon commander asked. "Why, yes, of course I have, Commander. Please do tell me how I can help." The Zygon commander was silent, as if he was contemplating on what type of question to ask. "Well, will you tell me, or will I have to leave?" "Our ship is damaged." "Oh, is it? Well, that explains the view of the ship. Well, now that I know what's going on, please take me to the root of your problem," I said nonchalantly. The Zygons were hesitant at first, but in the end they submitted to my request. On a side note, here's a small spoiler. I didn't really help them. I mean, who do you take me for? That sanctimonious cretin, the Doctor? Well, the main problem with the Zygon ship was that the main power was depleted rapidly. And, well, I went into a mode of assurance. I of course assured the Zygons that I'll do everything in my power to restore their power. I trotted off to the TARDIS and took out some cables. After a lovely 5-minute walk, I arrived at the Zygon ship power source, connected the cables. The Zygons watched my every move, being very suspicious of what I was doing. I, of course, was very careful, and when I arrived back at my TARDIS to start up the cables, I quickly locked the door, and before the Zygons knew it, I activated my TARDIS and siphoned off all the depleting energy into my ship. The ship grew dark, and the Zygons were furious. They sent out bolts after bolts of lightning on my TARDIS.
"I'm sorry to say, but those bolts won't do anything. Thank you for being so naive as to let me connect my TARDIS to your power source,"
I said in a mocking tone. "Why did you do this?" the Zygon commander yelled.
"Ah, well, you see, on my way here, my TARDIS proved to be a little tempestuous. So I needed to cycle off some energy from any form of organically powered spaceship to replenish the missing energy components. And as you were the only ship in need of rescue, well, it just was the most opportune moment I could ever have. And I thank you for that. I apologize for having to leave you to your death, but in full honesty, I'm giving you a favor."
With these words, I turned off the scanner and dematerialized the TARDIS, laughing away as I left the Zygons to die. Now we come to the moment you found me in. Once the TARDIS entered the shadow vortex, it began to shake. At first I thought it was the only minor turbulence, but then it happened. The TARDIS threw me back and the turbulence increased. We were spiraling out of time, as if some unknown entity had taken control of my TARDIS. The only thing for me to do was land, and so I did. The only thing I did not foresee was that I had landed on a planet in the vortex, and that I would meet you here, Master.
Oh, I knew eventually that someone would traverse these shores of the vortex. I'm a little disappointed it's you, but being stuck in here doesn't give you much choice, does it?
You brought me here. You orchestrated this meeting.
And now, thanks to you, I shall be free! Now, monk, open the door.
Never. You're always a pain in the ass, so now I'll relish the thought of you being trapped. You know what? I have somewhere better to be. So I'll be going now. Bye-bye!
Run, monk, run. You may have not freed me, but there will be others. Others more gullible than you. And until then, au revoir. You have been listening to Doctor Who Short Trips, Zygons and Martians, What Next? Written by Simon Koszalka. Performed by Alan Stewart. Producer, Derek Norwood. Executive producers, Alex Kochanek and Simon Koszalka.